All right. That's Marcus Whitney. We're going to talk all about his book. You guys have no idea what's in store for you. I never say you guys. You have no idea what's in store for you. But it's okay because there's no one here. That's the best thing about when you start a live. There's no one here for the first few seconds.
Yeah.
And then they all pour in and get mad if they don't. So now we're going to start with the theme. Backpack. That's it. That's all you get.
Dude, I was getting ready to go like hit some squats or something, man.
That was get a lift. It's good. Some lifting stuff.
Yeah.
Some lifting stuff. Marcus Whitney is here, and I warned Marcus that I'm going to try new things that I've never tried today because why not?
Why not?
You are out walking. I just noticed a shirt. You're out walking. You got your Create and Orchestrate because the book is out.
Yep.
First time in this big shiny world, this book. Scott Woodard is here. I was so hoping Scott was going to be here because he loves a good origin story.
All right. Here we go.
Marcus, what I said was I was going to start your origin story several times over. It starts in prison.
So I was asked to come speak to a group of inmates in the Tennessee Women's Prison who were enrolled in a program called BEST, which was about teaching inmates entrepreneurship. And this was the moment that galvanized the idea that everyone had not heard of entrepreneurship and everyone should know that this was an option for them. And I've maintained relationships with some of the women since they've been released, and entrepreneurship has been the thing that has been key to them not re-entering.
That's 2015. That was Karen Vander. And that is a time in your life where you went, oh my gosh, maybe I need to write a book about this because some people are going to be in need of a different perspective of entrepreneurship and with some different energy behind it. But actually it starts in college, beats, rhymes, and weed. The year is 93. What's going on there?
Golden era. So I chose hip hop over architecture at the University of Virginia. And I honestly don't regret that decision one bit. If you, I feel bad for you if you didn't get to experience hip hop in 1993. I mean, Wu-Tang, Nas, Big, it felt like every month another incredible album came out. And I was one of those kids in that moment who had enough skills to rhyme and wanted to be like those people. So rather than go into class, I wrote rhymes, I freestyled, and I sold a little bit of weed.
What was your rhyme style like? Because we're going to talk about weed, but what was your rhyme style like? Who would you say that you copped from the most?
So I'm from Brooklyn. And so I'm from Brooklyn. So there's definitely a sharp attackingness to the style. Jay-Z's first album was 96. So
right. You're Christopher Wallace all the way at this point.
It's more big for sure.
Yep.
Yes.
So that's like that sort of there's all that jamming. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I gotta chill. There's so many good things.
Yeah, man.
All right. So that was 93. And out of the rhymes, beats, and weed, you were really getting into the weed part. Yeah. Now it's 1996. There are guns drawn.
You're rhyming, you're not making any money, you're selling a little weed, you're smoking a little weed,
sell a little more, so smoke a little more.
And I ended up dropping out, moving to Fairfax with some good friends, one of which who I was in school with. We both dropped out to really pursue hip hop. But how do you finance your hip hop, career when nobody's actually buying your music? Well, you sell a little weed. And I don't know if you're going to say the next it starts with, but things got a little dicey after that.
Yeah, well, because I was going to say it starts with guns drawn. By the way, I want to tell people one thing. We're going to pause on guns drawn because what a pause, right?
That's a pause, man.
If you go see brogan.me/Marcus right now, his new book is at 99 cents on Kindle. It shoots up like $10, $12 today. Like it's already supposed to be. It's just not there.
99 cents. I got to talk to my team about this. This
is not marketing. This is what's going on. It's cbrogan.me/Marcus. I said it to him and he went, what? And that was that. So hello, Carol. So now back to the let me bring you back to the subject. Pep's on the set. It is 1996. There are guns drawn. Is it bad guys? Is it criminals?
So at first, that's what we thought. So we had this apartment, and it was the den. It was where we did all of our recording. But we also, since we lived there, we also would occasionally have a little stash of weed. And you know, we thought we were being robbed, but it actually was a raid, which was kind of crazy because we were not big time enough to deserve a raid, the kind of raid that we got. But it was a full on like 12 guy, all black mask SWAT team. Bust down the door, everyone on the floor, raid. Pretty scary stuff. I mean, I will, that visual is stuck in my head, will never go anywhere.
I just watched Inside Job for the first time in a long time. I had watched it before, but Denzel's having that conversation with that guy about, do you ever have a gun drawn on you before? Yeah, a little kid, you know, and I was thinking, you never forget a gun.
You never forget that. Never forget that.
Oof.
Yeah.
It starts in Atlanta because you join an agency. Oh no, never mind. That was quick. And it starts with getting married and making babies in Nashville.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of the beginning of my whole adult life. I was in Atlanta for a little bit and started a family. We decided we didn't want to be there. And my wife at the time had spent her high school years in Nashville, Tennessee. I'd never spent much time thinking about Nashville, Tennessee, being from Brooklyn. But we moved here sight unseen and rolled into town, and I started waiting tables. Labor Day 2000.
Labor Day 2000 waiting tables. Then you go, doing the waiters thing. You go about 8 months doing that, and you go from tables to tables. Talk about programming.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a dropout who was waiting tables with one kid and another on the way, I needed a hack. I needed a way to beat all of the odds and beat the system that said I was basically going to be totally screwed. I'm living in a week-to-week motel. And the one thing I knew was it was the year 2000. It was the dot-com boom. And there were, these long-haired high school kids riding skateboards, making $100,000 because they were doing this thing called web programming. So I just started going to Borders bookstores because Amazon hadn't put them out of business yet, and would, spend money, buy books, take them home, and on my little gateway PC, practice how to build websites. Back then, it was stuff like Flash, before Steve Jobs put him out of business,
right?
Cold Fusion, and stuff like that. But I taught myself how to code, and 8 months later, the day after my second son was born, I got my first programming job.
And then, because we just can't make it easy for you, it starts in 2008 on the heels of a divorce and remarkable wit.
Yeah, so that you just fast forwarded 7 years of programming, past me meeting you for the first time at Southwest.
Through that.
Yep, you fast forwarded through all of that, and now we're into the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. So I went from being this kid who's waiting tables to getting his first job to having a 4-year great run at a tech company called Emma Email Marketing. Was inspired by the founders there, and at the end, I went to South by Southwest. I threw a bar camp in Nashville and wanted to leave and start my entrepreneurial journey. Didn't know my wife wanted to leave as well, and so that was a crazy fun time. Starting a business, leaving the company that sort of made me, and ending my marriage. And Remarkable Wit was my first business where I managed to make $1 million and also have to shut it down within an 18-month window.
That's why I started there, because then you go back and you look at Emma and you go, this is one of those tales. This is one of those tales. Marcus is picking up. He's doing well. He's doing well. You say in the Emma time frame, you realized one day you looked around the room of programmers, you were the worst coder on your team.
Yeah, for sure.
That wasn't really what was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Those who can't teach, those who can't lead. Is that what you thought at that moment? Or did you just think, man, I suck and I got to figure something else out?
I basically, we were hitting this point where when I started, I was the fifth or sixth employee. And at the point where I wanted to leave, we had hit 50 people. And the thing that I loved about Emma sort of went away, which was there was no politics when I started there. There's 5 people. There was enough work for 10. So we were all so busy doing everything. When it got to 50, people started making decisions around what calendar we were going to use. You know what I mean? It starts getting into that stuff. And I just couldn't abide that. So that was really the motivation for me to leave. Was I just didn't want the politics. I wanted to create.
And that's maybe why the book is called Create and Orchestrate. And I will get back around to that. So I skipped over Emma because, you were still non-remarkable at that point. The next, I met you at South by. I just loved your character. I just loved you. I just said, geez, this guy's got energy. And everybody around you who knew you was like your disciple. And I couldn't quite figure that out because like they just all really were singing you, whether or not you were in the room. And then Dave Delaney, I think it was, says to me, have you seen what Marcus has done lately? He started this thing called Moon Toast.
Yeah.
And I see the shiny, it was like blue and purpley kind of business cards and stuff like that. And I was like,
yeah.
What's he, like a nighttime DJ? I didn't get it. So you let me off the hook a little. You said that's because we were like 4 different companies as we kind of went along. So talk me through the Moon Toast era.
Yeah, so the way that Moon Toast started for me, it was 2 guys who were who had this idea to create a knowledge workplace, which we still see. Oh, I love it. I love it.
You know what you're going to earn for this is a cat anus.
That's amazing. Okay.
She puts the meat right at the screen. This is, I hate this.
Oh, here it comes. Here it comes. My cat would never do that. My cat would never do that.
I don't give her any attention. And she's like, I'm in the show, bitch. So she's at the mic. You know, she wants to purr into the mic just so you can hear that she's actually really here.
That's so dope.
Dave Armano is the other guy who got cat anus. So
that's awesome. Okay, I'm gonna try and remember where
I'm so sorry. You started Moon Toast and there's 4 toasts.
Got it. Yeah. So Remarkable Wit was an agency, software development agency that would help small businesses and entrepreneurs to create software. And one of those clients was Moon Toast. So I wasn't a co-founder of Moon Toast, really. I was a vendor that was building software for them, but I made a super big mistake in my company. And that was, I allowed that business, that client, to turn around and make up 70% of my revenue. They kept growing. I had people to sort of serve them. And the next thing I knew, like, they got in trouble and needed, you know, me to kind of move into the company in order for it to continue. And I ended up having to shut my company down. So I became the CTO / co-founder of that company. You know, they can do things with press releases, and, you know, had a very, very small percent of the equity, and then was never given the nod to be the CEO. So I stayed the CTO for most of the time that I was there. And we were multiple things over the course of that time. I will say, in our defense, it was a very, very weird time in the technology space, because when we started, you know, a couple things. When we started, mobile phones had not become the thing. They were there, right? You know, iPhone came out in 2007. We launched that company in 2009, let's call it. So mobile phones were a thing, but they weren't the thing. Facebook was gaining momentum, but it hadn't launched its ad product yet. And so we launched this business in that window of time. And we were part of a whole legion of businesses that were sort of the social media platforms, you know, the Facebook preferred marketing developers, if you will. And VCs poured a bunch of money into Moon Toast and a bunch of other businesses. And we would keep pivoting every time Facebook would tell us to jump. And, you know, after 4 years, basically, you know, they told us to jump off a bridge. So, you know, they ended our business model by making a change in their terms and conditions.
That's everybody, right? You know, that's what you get when you work someone else's platform. A lesson I paid for expensively in 2010 when I was building something on top of someone else's email platform, who then went out of business. Not Emma. I'm going to swap way forward, and then we're going to go backwards again, because, you know, I have so many things. So this book, when you decide you're going to write this book, I can see you. I can see you as you're writing this book. I can see what you think you have to put there, and I can see what you want to put there, and I can see where you're like, well, I guess that's what you do, right? Like, and that's how we wrote Trust Agents. That's how anyone writes a book, right? You know, you just kind of go, well, I think this will be helpful.
Yes.
And one of the first things I saw that I actually really outlined, besides being a good note taker for the interview, the thing I like felt in my belly is you said you are the chief communications officer first and then CEO. That felt like a full-fledged Marcus thing, that he puts his hand on someone's shoulder if there's not a cat on it and tells them. Where's that from?
It is from years of experience of seeing it done right and seeing it done wrong. You know what I mean? And doing it right and doing it wrong.
Okay.
I mean, probably most importantly, the times when I did it wrong, because, you know, Chris, those times I love it, dude. So good.
And I dislike this animal so much.
Yeah, I could tell. So it's like the times when you failed as the leader of a venture to communicate to your team effectively. it's sort of like seared. It's like a brand. You cannot get away from that moment, because it was all on you.
Right.
And so, I write that to try to save someone else from that scar more than anything. It's not about trying to save the business or anything like that. It's like those mistakes hurt so bad for so long. And you realize afterwards, all you had to do was just be honest, be brave, right? Sometimes it takes being brave, but man, you feel so much better after the fact if you do it the right way.
I feel like if I remixed that chapter, a decent album comes out and then everyone wants to remix it so much. If I remix that chapter,
you know how to do the remix, right?
have to. If you do, that's my chapter, because it's like, that's the one where you talk about empathy. It's where you talk about repetition. I feel like that was a notepad moment somewhere for you. You're in between things. You're on some small device because all the lessons are small.
Yeah.
And you put that in there then because you're like, I've got to remind myself to tell people this because these are the things that bothered me the most. And I know that I hurt people. And that's the feeling. Is that?
Yeah. That's right. So the name of the chapter is what good leaders do.
Yep.
And I start the chapter by saying, I can tell you a lot about what good leaders don't do. Right.
That's right.
Look, there was no point. There's so many books out there about business that sort of assert things, right? Assert things as truth, axioms. And I'm not saying I didn't do that in this book, but one thing I wanted to make sure, if I was going to do that, I needed to also talk about the mistakes, the really painful ones that I made. That I've learned from, that nobody okay, maybe you need to sort of feel it yourself, but man, it hurts. It hurts. And it always fails if you do it this way. So that chapter was one of those. That chapter, Don't Believe You're Impressed, is another chapter. There are some chapters where I'm just saying, here's where I totally screwed up.
And it's interesting because if you don't read how the rest of the book reads, if you started at that chapter, which would be weird, but I guess some people read books kind of where they want to start.
Yeah.
You would not realize that what you were saying when you say what good leaders don't and what good leaders do, you were pooping on yourself. You're saying, I am the don't guy in a lot of these, and I need you to be the do guy because I saw what it did. You took that bravery route all the way. You say so many of your failures. You talk through them not because anyone loves to fail, but because we love to learn from the failure. And I think that you cover that so well. Marcus, it starts in 2009 and you are nominated for Startup of the Year in Nashville.
So embarrassing. Like of all the things you've brought up, that is just so embarrassing. So we were nominated for Startup of the Year. It was the first time like my name was in lights per se. And I got obsessed with it, man. I just forgot that I was supposed to be building a piece of software for a company and just really focused on this Startup of the Year thing. And there was I really suffered from not having a mentor to just rein me in. Our company was sort of really top down, board, CEO. We were all sort of into the press thing. It was a thing for us. And there was nobody there to sort of slap me and say, listen, dude, that just does not matter. It just does not matter, And so I just think about all the wasted energy and how dejected I felt when I didn't win the award I didn't deserve to win. The award we did not deserve to win. We didn't win it. I was so mad because I somehow felt that we had been flashy enough to deserve to win it. Like I didn't even understand what it meant to deserve to win the award. And so having had enough press over my career, over the course of my career, and knowing that it usually translates in bad stuff, not good stuff. It was just a warning. You know what I mean? It was just a warning to look, it's not invaluable, but it can be very seductive and very deceptive. And you just need to, tread cautiously.
There is a business philosopher, William Jonathan Drayton Jr., who said, "Don't believe the hype." He said that. Real name Flavor Flav.
Yeah.
He said, "Don't believe the hype." You mentioned that early, like intro or something, and I was like, "Damn it, you could have called that chapter this." But we did what we did, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It starts in Boston. It does. Hold up. When were you in Boston? We didn't hang out for any of that time that you've been going back and forth to Boston.
I showed up. Okay, I gotta say, I showed up to a speaking thing you did. You were blowing up, dude. You were blowing up, and I saw you, and I was just like, "Wow, he's so much bigger now than as a
hot dogs,
than he was when I met him at South by all those years ago." Yeah, man, Moon Toast made me move to before Boston. Made me move to Andover.
I went to high school in North Andover. I'm from Maine, but I know Andover. Pardon me, Andover.
Yeah, so I lived in Beacon Hill, and where I really lived was the Sevens. Shout out to Julian and all the good people at the Sevens. I lived in Beacon Hill, but I would have to take the commuter rail from North Station out to Andover. Oh. Yeah, it was rough, dude. It was rough. I did that for like a year and a half before we actually moved in town to Faneuil Hall. It was brutal, man. And it's like a 45-minute ride. So like, at the end of a long day, like I got to catch that last rail, and it's dark by the time I'm walking home. It's super cold. I don't know anybody except for the people at the Sevens. So you can imagine what I'm doing. I'm drinking and eating bad food. It was rough, man. That was a rough patch.
And I told you right before we hit record, this isn't like, it's about your book. It's about leadership. It's whatever. I don't want to talk about race, but Brooklyn, Atlanta, Nashville, Boston.
Oh, dude.
Oh, you couldn't get more secretly racist than Boston.
Hard, man. Hard.
Was it the worst? Tell me it was the worst. Tell me it's the worst place you've been. You can't say that? Okay.
No, I've been smaller places.
Okay.
Smaller places along the way. But being from the Northeast, I knew how to navigate it.
Okay.
Look, there are places in Brooklyn that are super racist. I went to school in Bay Ridge, and I had friends in Benton. You know what I mean? Like I'm talking like Bensonhurst.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like back in the day, Michael Griffith get killed and all that kind of crazy stuff. So I was not like in this. New York is so not racist. It's like, are you kidding? And the South is so racist. Like, no. The Northeast has hella racism. For sure.
It does. They just hide it super well.
That's right. I knew what I was encountering when I was in Boston. But it was still what it was. It didn't take away the feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ugh. Anyway, I just had to throw that in for people who don't know.
Yeah.
It all starts with Vic Gatto, really. I mean, I don't think there's really any story unless there's Vic Gatto. What the heck happened there?
Back to Boston. Vic Gatto is a guy from Boston who landed in Nashville, like I did, and he, when I met him, was a career venture capitalist. He had spent about a decade in venture capital, and was at his core an entrepreneur and an innovator, and was thinking about how venture capital could be different, and was looking for entrepreneurs that would help him to figure that out. And so he and I met, started a friendship in 2009, and he was my side hustle partner from 2009 to 2014 while I was dying. I hate to say this for all the people I worked with at Moon Toast, but I think they were too. Like, we were all dying there. It was like such a hard slog trying to make that business work. But nights and weekends, I got to work on Jumpstart Foundry with him, and it gave me an amazing transition play when Moon Toast ended, to go start Jumpstart Foundry the way it is today, a full blown healthcare venture capital platform. And I've been doing it from that day. It's been great.
You said in that part about side hustles too, the one great thing about side hustles is, sure, they're risk proof, but they are not lazy proof.
No.
I loved the way you said that. Is that advice you give at Jumpstart Foundry now as well?
Yeah. I mean, we were able to look. I'll say one thing about the venture business. Since we were just riffing on racism, the venture business is like, the most hiding in plain sight, systemically racist, private business industry cluster there is. It's unbelievable. Like, if anyone actually starts to do statistics on it, the exclusion of Black people in that business is unbelievable. So my friendship and partnership with Vic Gatto was truly a super backdoor into a very, very closed off industry. And the way we were able to sort of rise up from where we were just a measly little accelerator writing $15,000 checks. The way we were able to go from there to being a full blown C2 Series A fund writing larger, $2-3 million checks was hustle. We just worked so much harder than the average firm, because of that good old boy network and that closed networkness. They don't have to work that hard. You know what I mean? Like they're pretty, I don't want to say they're lazy, but like they don't really work that hard. And we were just working 3 times as hard. So the things that we were able to do over the course of 5 years probably would have taken the average firm 15, especially with our connections,
My pal Roberto Blake made the point that, for him to succeed, he always had to be extra. He always just had to do a lot more. And that just was a stakes for the game for him.
Just did.
He has that in common with your son. Roberto's dad was a Marine, is a Marine. I don't know, served in the Marines, and your son's a Marine. You seem to be cut from that have to be extra kind of cloth.
That was how I was raised. What
did mom and dad do, by the way? What was the
so my dad just worked a ton of jobs. The reason he's so good in retirement is because he retired from multiple jobs. He was in the Army during the Korean War, honorably discharged after serving. He was a corrections officer in New York City, spending a bit of time at Rikers Island, retired from that after 20 plus years of service. And then he went to the post office and he retired from that after 20 plus years of service. And so, he just worked jobs. He almost always worked night shift. And then often he did a side hustle. He would work construction to make extra money. So my dad was just a pure straight up hustler. He worked, I wouldn't call them safe jobs from a health perspective.
Right.
Even that, if you showed up every day and you did what you're supposed to do, you weren't going to get fired. And at the end of, serving your time, you would get a pension. So that's what he did. My mom worked in credit and billing. So originally she worked at B. Altman, the department store, and then she shifted into medical billing and did that until she retired.
Wow. It's hardworking people.
Hardworking.
3 retirements, basically. Which also points me towards your perspective on things like money. Like you said, there was that whole time where you were living in a week-to-week hotel. So you're not from poverty, but you were in poverty while you were doing your work, to the point where you're now saying spend less and have a cushion. And that's advice you're giving people. Is that because of what you went through after leaving home? Yeah.
And it's also my parents were definitely good, like a solid middle class family, something that we sort of are struggling to find in America today. They were from a generation where you saved money, you were able to buy a home, things weren't so out of control, unaffordable. You could do it. You could make the numbers work. And it's that whole ethos is going away. And I'll also say, as I was ascending, my economic mobility was a little jarring at times. You know what I mean? Like going from a waiter to that programming gig, and then, ascending to a partner at Emma where I'm owning equity and I'm making 6 figures, and then moving into, being a part of a venture-backed company where they're writing multi-million-dollar checks. This all happened in less than 10 years. And so I'm now around multimillionaires and even, billionaires in some cases. And no one was telling me how to actually spend my money or save my money. And I'm going through a divorce. So I learned some of these things through, I almost went bankrupt at one point, along this journey. And I didn't put that in the book because it was an almost. It wasn't like had I put it in there. I almost did. But divorce kicks your ass, man.
Sure does.
Kicks your ass, especially if you're serious about it. You got kids and you're doing the alimony and you're doing the child,
right.
Never miss a payment, and on top of that, you do that because it's court ordered, but you still, that's not the end of your money that you're spending on kids. You're still the one paying for them to go to schools. You're still the one paying for space camp. You're still the one doing these other things. So yeah, man, I got creamed. I got creamed through that. And when I came out on the other side of that and remarried, and we now have this beautiful house, largely because my wife is very, very disciplined. I had to had to start to learn some of these financial principles myself. Some of these are recent that I put in the book.
Gotcha. Well, they're going to serve a lot of people now, right?
Yeah, especially right now in this moment. Yeah.
I want to talk about, you said the word ascended, and I stopped paying attention to anything you said because I started shooting a picture in my head of like Marcus Whitney ascending. And I was thinking, man, you have some damn boss photos. And I wanted to talk just a minute about, the Create and Orchestrate cover. That's a pretty, thanks before you go.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
There we go.
I wasn't going anywhere.
Too early.
I want to say that like that picture of you on the cover, that is I am strong. Tell me what that picture means to you, because I'll tell you what I take from it. But what does that picture mean to you on the cover of your book?
So it's funny.
Everyone knows you're a sweetheart. You know that, right? You look like yard hard right there. Why does it look like that?
I think this is one of those really interesting photos that people will take different things from it. For me, honestly, it is this combination of pain and resilience. That's what I sort of see in myself when I look at it. I see just like, holy shit, dude, you made it, but you went through a ton to make it. Like,
right.
It was not easy. You know what I mean? This was not easy. So I mostly I kind of get stuck in my own eyes. It's interesting to kind of look at yourself and be like, okay, what are you saying to yourself there? And it's mostly, man, dude, you've been through a lot.
You took a lot of big swings on the way. Your book starts at chapter 14, because that's when you start talking about orchestrate. So I guess create is the first 13 chapters, and then I don't think you thought that out. No, create and orchestrate. You have like a chapter near the end. What does orchestrate mean? Why? Is it about the collaboration? Because I can get with that. What are we on about?
Yeah. Man, what a hard word to capture in writing, because it's I feel like it's like The Alchemist, right? You could write an entire book about this thing and maybe still not ever hit on exactly what it is.
Sure.
For me, orchestration is when you have a belief, you commit to a belief, and then you create this center of gravity around it that without having to command people to, brings people to align and collaborate synergistically and in harmony with a vision, right? Like without you having to command people to do it. Like that's the key, right? Because it's bigger. It's too big for you to be able to do that. You don't have the power to command enough people to do enough things to orchestrate something. That's why at the end of writing about the whole soccer, bringing Major League Soccer to Nashville, I just say just think about an orchestra and think about what the conductor is doing. We've all seen it, right? And it's like what they're doing is not commanding. They can't. There's too many people out there. You know what I mean? They're leading, but from this center of gravity that comes from respect and commitment and alignment and belief, and seeing themselves as a valuable and an important part in this thing, but also understanding it's bigger than them. It's all of those things. So it was a tough thing to try to capture. I'm not sure that I did it justice, but I gave it, best swing for a first time author.
It's what came out. Your chapter or your talk about bringing the soccer to Nashville, I just suddenly got into that Basquiat with Jay-Z thing where I was like, oh, pardon me, sir. But, it was a good example of orchestration. But, good thing you picked a much beloved American sport like soccer. Did you just think, I haven't really had enough horrible struggles in my life? I think what I'll do is I'll pick a sport that most Americans don't know exists and put it out there.
My first sport. It was my first sport. I feel like all the little kids, they grow up
in Brooklyn.
Yeah, man. Look, dude. I mean, think about it. In Brooklyn, with the Italians and the Russians, with all the European immigrants, like, of course we.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay,
yeah. You know what I mean? Like we all played soccer, and so when I got to Nashville, I was into all the same American sports, but I actually got into into soccer originally for my kids because when Moon Toast hit, I wasn't spending a lot of time with them.
Sure.
I needed to kind of pick something that would be interesting that I could get them into, and at the same time, quite frankly, for the exact reason you said, would help them to see the world as bigger than America.
Beautiful.
I didn't want it to be something that was just sort of American. They had enough America, you know what I mean? And so we picked an English Premier League team, Tottenham Hotspur, and we started supporting that team. And then, that team would actually come to America, come to Nashville and play. And, they have, my son is now in Okinawa, Japan, and my other son has been to Korea, and they've both been to Costa Rica and to the Caribbean. And so to me, it was part of giving them a global experience, before they became adults.
So they've been around the world. They don't speak the language, but soccer don't need explaining. I think Jason Derulo got that line wrong, but that's what he was trying to say. Marcus, this is a first-time book, and those are crazy because they take longer than you think. They're worse than you think. They are blood on the page kind of a thing. You get done, you see every mistake you made that you left in by mistake. You say, why did I say that? I could have done this a better way. And then it's like giving birth, I'm told. And a couple of years later, you think you're going to write another book. You have, between you and that next book, Jumpstart Foundry. Let's leave on talking about what Jumpstart Foundry is about. And let's posit what the second Marcus Whitney tome will be about.
Wow. I'm spending a lot of time thinking about Jumpstart Foundry because I'm thinking about doing something pretty big that is not, that I alluded to earlier when I talked about the inequity in the venture capital space. So Jumpstart Foundry is a venture capital business that invests in early stage healthcare innovation companies from around the country and in some cases around the world. Healthcare has been the biggest issue for every election running for the last 4 elections, and obviously right now it's the biggest issue that we're all dealing with. It also happens to intersect with another really big issue, which is systemic racism and inequity. And, it actually shows up really clearly in healthcare when, Black people and Latinx people die 2 to 2.5 times more often than white people from the very same disease. And so it is a platform that is a capitalist platform, which, if you read the book, you read the first chapter, it's like my very first statement is that the world speaks capitalism. That is the universal language. It's what we've chosen to all align on, is the exchange of money for value. But it also is very, very mission oriented. It is seeking to make healthcare, which is one of the great things we have to work on as humanity. We have to work on equity. We have to work on energy. We have to work on water. We have to work on healthcare. These are like big, big, big problems. It allows me to root my capitalist energy into something really, really important, and feel more aligned and whole, and sort of like I'm hitting my ikigai, if you will, with it. So we've been doing it for 5 years. It's been great. I get to work with entrepreneurs, which is fantastic. I love it. And I've also learned a lot about the healthcare industry, which is a show for another time.
For another time, for sure. What's that gonna translate to in your next book 4 years from now?
Man, it took me 5 years to write this book.
That's right.
Everything you said, that's it. And everything you said about the first book is exactly right. I will say I've now gone through this book 2 or 3 times since actually putting it out. And my goal was to be able to look through the book and say, it's a good book. And I do think I achieved that. In terms of what the next book will be, you said a couple of years later, you start thinking that I'm a week out from actually putting it out. So I can't really get there yet. But I do have this sense that if I am fortunate enough, there will be another book, and it will be less about entrepreneurship and more about well-being. It will be more on that front. That's been the journey I've been mostly on for the last 18 months. Getting sober, working out, meditating, focusing on sleep, becoming plant-based. And that has transformed my ability to execute as an entrepreneur, my ability to be a good husband, my ability to be a good father, my ability to manage my time and my energy, my ability to live in this very, very difficult moment in time. And so I think something around well-being is probably where the next book goes.
You know why a guy like me asks you a question like that a week after your first book is because you will iterate, because that is who you are and that's how you're built. Marcus Whitney also has a podcast that if I don't say before we leave, I will have been very remiss. You are at the 100th episode of the show. What's the theme of it? What do you do?
Yeah, so the podcast is called Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe, which allows me to iterate, as you just said. So I've done multiple things, and I took a page out of your book when all this COVID-19 stuff started, and I started doing a daily live show that's called Marcus Whitney Live. So at this point, that I will have you on. So at this point, that's mostly what the podcast is made up of. And it certainly has allowed me to get to 100 episodes very quickly. So over COVID-19, I think I went from, 40 episodes to 100 like that. But Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe, if you just go into wherever you get your podcast and you search for Marcus Whitney, thankfully I come up first, which is really great. So
you have the name when it comes to that.
Easy. Like if you go into Google and you put me in, you'll find me on the socials. You'll find my website. You'll find my podcast. You just have to search for Marcus Whitney. Search for my name.
During this interview, my mom and dad watch this show. During this interview, my mom texts me so that my eyes have to, go away from the screen.
Of course.
And says, you can invite Marcus back anytime. So
wow.
I would say that that's a shared opinion on all the people who've come and spent time.
That's the best. Look, that's the best thing I could have heard. Gosh.
And when you get back out to travel, you should find yourself in Vegas. My parents are incredible meal people. They will open you up and either meet you somewhere or take you to their house and they'll cook for you.
That would be amazing. I'm writing that down.
Go get it. So listen, we did it. We did all the things we got to do. You can go to @MarcusWhitney. You can go to marcuswhitney.com. You can get the book for a very brief time. cbrogan.me/Marcus. Don't tell Sheridan. cbrogan.me/Marcus is where you can find that. Scott says, thank you. Very good. This is all I got. Thank you so much for coming and spending time with me.
For asking, and thank you so much for connecting and being a massive supporter of the book. And Chris, I have to just say, throughout this journey of writing this book and doing this podcast and getting back into blogging and writing a newsletter every day, you have for more than a decade been one of the most important lights for me to follow, without a doubt. The consistency, both in terms of the productivity, but also in terms of you never veering away from who you are, is a guiding light for me and so many other people. So thank you so much for being authentic, for showing us how to do this the right way, in a way that really, really helps people. Thank you.
Well, if I can be your M and shout at you, Dre, I demand you remember who you are. That's why I'm here. That's one of my only post-2001 favorite songs, So I do this all the time, Marcus. It is awful. It is either movie quotes or rap quotes.
I like the rap quote thing, dude. I love it.
Always pose them as if it's absolutely a totally serious sentence. And then finally someone will come to it. They'll be like, I demand you remember who I need a doctor, you dumbass. All right, get out of here. I think you're good. Let's leave. I'm pushing the button. Everybody get off my line.